we are recording. Your
That's
webcam,
this is very exciting.
your webcam quality is pretty nice. Mine looks a lot not nice, actually. It looks very zoomed in. I'm feeling like I'm right in my own face.
Yeah, that's funny. Like the focal length your head is. Well, our heads are about the same size. Oh, look. Whoa, what's going on? It was zoomed in.
Yeah, it was. That's
Oh.
usually my palette cam when I stream.
Oh, I get it.
So it was like, look at this. Look at this closely, you know?
Oh, that's the thing is you stream so people remember you exist.
Kinda.
I feel like I'm
sorta.
always. I feel like other than lurking around on Facebook and Instagram, I don't exist. I'm just alone in my studio,
Mm-hmm.
like making
I
stuff.
feel that way when it comes to music. But yeah, for miniature painting, it definitely
Yeah. Do you think
does.
maybe it's because, I mean, your music is more like pure your art.
Yeah, it's
Do you
definitely
think that makes it harder to share?
doesn't make it harder to share. I think that there's. I've always thought that it's funny because I have like I get a fulfillment from making it,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is the hurdle. Is that even if it's I get a fulfillment from making it, but from not exactly completing it. So it's like getting it to the stage where it's releasing and then talking about promotion and doing all of the extra necessary. That stuff is the stuff that's
Exhausting.
hard and the stuff that I don't care about. And so yeah, in a way, it is my pure. But that's also what makes it hard for it to like grow. I think is that that's not there's all this extra stuff that's not going into.
Yeah, I think I do that sort of, like, I get that fulfillment, especially now with a pretty decent or a fair 3D printer. Like my printer's good enough that I would paint prints coming out of it.
Mm.
And so when I sculpt a model, I can that day feel like I fulfilled my dream of like having it on the table. So I don't know. Maybe it's bad. I think part of it is that I haven't been setting deadlines for myself also.
Yeah,
So like
painting.
Kickstarter's like the ultimate deadline where you're just like, guys, I've got 1,000 people that are ready, and I told them I'd have it this day, and so that's a big deal. And so having not run a Kickstarter, I've got like relic blade sculpts or sludge sculpts or uh, goofy side projects or drawings that I just never do anything with, even though I'm pouring my like professional practice work hours into it.
I feel that for
So
sure.
stupid.
I've been super stoked like writing up the sludge stuff, or excuse me, the savage stuff, because
Mhm.
it's like given me a focused writing exercise, so to speak, like where there's an objective to and things to like still sort out. Like today I rewrote that thing that I sent you, and before I was gonna rewrite it, I was battling against the notion of rewriting it, just being like what's the point, kind of like what am I really gonna do that's different? But as I like went through and sort of forced myself to do it, I was like, oh, I like this version better already.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I imagine if writing or creating something was like creating from scratch is like scratch building, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but once you already have the component parts, then it's more like building Legos, where you have parts and you have to try and figure out how they fit together.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe maybe you're
It
just
definitely
continuing
is
the
like
scratch
that,
build
and that's the next step is to craft those components into and that thing that I wrote was essentially, even though it had an exercise of trying to put to word some of the stuff that we talked about, like the ideas and themes that we're kind of exploring with it. It also did have a kind of like a Lego block idea that I need an intro lore section, something to put the player into the mind, you know.
We should say, real quick, hello everyone. You're listening to episode 0 of Sean and Malev podcast, Artist Studio Hangout Sessions, Session 0. And Malev right now is talking about a game that he is writing it's top secret.
It is, even though
and he already said the title. So for those of you that are like keen listeners, know that it's called something. And then I'm also like, we're kind of switching roles because I create Relic Blade and Sludge, and I'm always on calls like this with Malev, where we bounce ideas off each other. We talk about like what we've been working on. We talk about things that are influencing our creative process. Talk about our creative process. Talking about getting over creative block, all that kind of stuff. And it makes sense to share some of that because it's like we almost always have great conversations that
I agree. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So anyways,
for
like,
sure,
so we're
to nothingness.
With Malev's latest project, we're kind of switching roles where I, in the past, or am even presently, I've got projects that we're co-writing in a way, where it's my world, but you are able to enter it as a stranger and define a bunch of stuff and see stuff that I can't see, and then I'm able to revisit and explore the world more. And so with Savagery, I'm able to be a stranger and be asking questions about like what's up on that mountain, and you're like, oh,
exactly.
thanks for asking. There's a temple of snake demons.
Oh no!
Yeah,
the snake demon temple. Yeah, no doubt, and it is cool. I think this will be an interesting way to let people know that there's a lot of stuff that we're constantly thinking about and working on and pondering and dreaming about, and designing and trying to play test, and just the way that, like, for example, I want to hear about your Bushido games.
Yeah.
And how that sort of thinking, how that game kind of influences your thinking when it comes to your game designs, or just like reminding you about what's fun about it, getting back and actually playing games with people.
Yeah,
after such a long time.
And that's another thing is like, COVID's really changed the hobby landscape. Maybe not permanently, but I think there are changes that will be permanent for those of us, where we had to like refocus on what games we wanted to play, whether we were mostly going to be painting or mostly not painting, or giving up altogether, or those of us who are authors writing games and then having them sort of just disappear because no one could get together and play them. Like Mike and I wrote Mystic Skies, and it is a really good game that like people could be enjoying playing in even competitive settings, but like at a big event where you've got all these wizards getting together. But there's no such thing as big events. You can barely get 2 wizards in the same room. Although, this past weekend I did get to schedule and play Bushido with a friend, and it was day 11 of him having gotten COVID. So it was like just at the end of him being, he'd been well. And
he had COVID as well. Word, man. Damn.
Finished his quarantine, and then I went over and we like hit each other with samurai swords. It's been funny, and like I think that's part of
with the figures that you got from Adepticon.
Right, right. And, yeah, and so it's like I think that's another thing for recording this show, is kind of being able to work through the isolation of having been working on so much stuff and then not really being able to launch it properly or play test it in person, or get game groups to throw down, and that's changing now. But I think continuing to share and be have a mindset where I want to share what I'm working on. Because too often I'll do a drawing and think, oh, I better not share this because it won't be available for a while.
Yeah, or
And
it
then I
might
end up sharing nothing.
mislead or something.
And then I scroll through my Instagram and it's like, a post every or 2 posts a month
I
of
feel you.
stuff that wasn't precious to me. So like a lot of my feed is like sludge terrain or shots of games played with not my own figures because it wasn't precious to me. Whereas if I got together and was like sharing relic blade sculpts or some like of the really cool illustrations I did for Catacombs of Corral, like I would feel more like I exist as an
It's
artist. I'd be sharing my art.
I feel you. It's kind of strange. Like I've with social media, for whatever reason, I've been in a bit of like a. It has nothing necessarily to do. There is a sort of general disinterest that is definitely kind of like pervading. Oh, I like an apathy
For you when
for
you
me
think
when I
about
think
like
about
playing on
posting.
Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram or even on Facebook when it comes to music, when it comes to really whatever. Mostly um expression, because now it seems that so much of what I see on like social media feeds and stuff is like very topical, right? Either it's about like pop culture stuff or things that are happening in the world, uh political events, all sorts of things that are very topical, that when it's like I outside of the niche of the stuff that I'm interested in, which is like 90% of it, everything, so many things, so it's
Mhm.
like people are talking about a lot of stuff that I have feelings about, but for whatever reason I don't want to I just want to feel them, and I don't really want to put them out there
Mhm.
but at the same time, kind of like what you were saying, I feel bad for not doing so for some reason. Like I
Mhm.
feel like I'm not playing like a part in this, I guess, social media experiment or something.
Well,
You know,
yeah, I
it's
think
like it's
well,
like feeling both ways at the same time, where I want to say something about it, but at the same time, I don't want to say something about it because I know what I have to say isn't like this perfect. Not perfect, but it isn't it isn't an insightful take.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
just like does it's just this
yeah,
normal noise, so to speak, and I
yeah.
recognize that that's
That's something. If we're gonna record our conversations, I'll have to be careful not to rant too much because I'll never not never, but I very rarely share my personal thoughts concerning
yeah, no doubt.
metaphysics in the world today online.
Hmm.
But the minute a friend walks by, like my neighbor's mowing his lawn, and I'll run out barefoot and be like, "Hey, bud," and we'll like spend a half hour talking about whatever is on my
Hmm.
mind. Uh, and yeah, it's funny because I mean the big thing for me is my livelihood is based on being an artist that makes stuff,
Yeah, and then you
and
have
so
to have a sort of presence for that.
yeah, and as I've become less and less likely to tell people what I've been doing because it's so exhausting to think like, well, it's already been so long since I've written a newsletter. What am I going to talk about? Like oh guys, by the way, I wrote 2 sledge books. I sculpted 40 sledge miniatures. Um and I haven't even told you how to play the game, like what I need to make a YouTube video about how
Hmm.
gore works or whatever. And it's like,
The
ay,
task
ay,
list
ay.
is just endless, and it's
Hmm.
interesting because there's endless things to share because of it, in a sense.
And there's endless stuff in my mind that's waiting to come out. Like so many ideas for games, so many expansions, so many figures. And it's like, I, well, I want to be making that, you know,
Yeah.
instead of creating product codes for my website so I can actually put them up for sale.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. It's
I guess that's why people get employees if they're trying to run a business instead of just being like a one man boutique.
yeah, it's a bit romantic, and I'm in a similar situation, you know, where I have a friend and rapper. His name is Dumb Luck, and he has this rhyme in one of his songs where he says something like, "It's time to wake up and smell the daffodils. I'm past my 30s and I'm trying to be a rapper still," or something like that,
Yeah.
you know. And it's like I always think about that line and just like what the core of what the core of it's asking, you know, and it's just like it's a real sharp question when you as the artist you're asking yourself like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? You know, should I be doing other things and stuff like that? And like when it comes to like all the maelstrom, I mean, the answer is always for me personally no. And I'm if we're talking about like, you know, like Relic Blade and stuff and the games that you create, the outpour cannot be stopped as opposed to, you know, thinking about an alternative or something. It's not really
Yeah,
what
and
I'm trying to
thankfully, I
say,
mean,
but
thankfully, Metal King Studio is profitable enough that it's my profession, you
mhm.
know, and there's no, I'm not like worried about not doing it anymore.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
worried
exactly.
about whether or not I should hire an assistant to do
Hmm.
some of the stuff that like I can't keep up with,
Yeah.
you know. But I don't. I think I'm in less of a should I am I all right. So in there's a famous Japanese artist named Hokusai, and most people are familiar with the Great Wave painting with
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fujiyama in the
Hmm.
background,
Yep.
and that's part of a series of woodcuts he did of Mount Fuji through different seasons and stuff. And for whatever reason, like Westerners in particular were like, "Oh wow, that's a wave! It looks so Japanese," and we love it even now, and you see it all over the place.
What a
But
Japanese wave.
oh, wow, heck! But Hokusai was a really interesting fella because he just freaking loved drawing. Like he just couldn't not draw,
Mm.
and in his, unlike some other artists like Van Gogh, where he posthumously became famous,
Yeah.
Hokusai got famous in his life, but he just like really just loved to draw, and he would get royalty checks mailed to him, and he just lived in this little hut, and he would stuff the royalty checks into his walls to insulate his walls.
He was just a true, just fulfilled completely by his
Yes,
desires
or
and work.
just or maybe it's I mean really it's OCD. It's like he can't not draw. And I feel like that
Yeah,
too.
like
Like I can't
some
not tell
scientific
stories.
extreme case in
Yeah, like he's
history.
got like yeah,
Like-
he's like got problems, but also we love what he's making, and we want to tell him we love what he's making, but he just has to. He's just so like making it because he loves it, you know. And so I feel a little bit like that. I mean, that's a very romantic extreme. Obviously, I do take my time to try and sell my stuff and be in public at cons or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But like, I can feel myself being pulled toward becoming a hidden guy toiling in my hut on the cliffs
Yeah,
above the sea.
where things could seem like perhaps a bit futile. Is that what you're
Well, yeah, I
saying?
think I would just go into an unhealthy level of like OCD, just like making figures for my own edification. Um,
You know, that kind of reminds me of, you know, going making music locally and for dabbling in it as long as I have, especially online and sharing it and stuff. I've come across a lot of people that have shared with me their music and whatnot.
mhm,
And I remember meeting a dude who I recorded something in his little basement studio. It was a really nice setup. You know, like a little professional studio in one's basement. You know, it was really cool. And I remember also that that individual shared with me, and this was a long time ago. This was like 8 years ago, so long ago. But I remember that they shared with me kind of like their discography, so to speak, on Bandcamp, and it was seriously like 35 projects each that were like 10 tracks over. And I remember just being like astounded and also like inspired and discouraged and like estranged at all of this idea where I was like, this guy's made so much music, and it's like, who's listened to this? Like, and I don't remember if it was really bad or good. It was definitely probably like not my taste, but it was just like this volume of work, and I felt kind of like he was just like you were describing, this like obscure dude who was literally toiling in that really gorgeous professional basement studio of his, making this not very great music in as like an extreme passion, and I was just like, this is like, it's so odd. It was almost like one of those times I guess I was experienced to like that reality of that, like, not everybody's gonna be making music that everybody enjoys, or especially not everybody's gonna be making a name for themselves, and
Yeah, it's
as an
interesting
artist or
because
in music, it's the factors that contribute to that are not necessarily just like, I guess, volume or something.
you yeah, interesting. There's a like urban legend. There's lots of great stories about the artist formerly known as Prince.
Yeah.
And he was an eccentric artist,
Mm-hmm.
and like very, I mean, I have no particular like connection to his music, but these stories really resonate with being an eccentric. Like, and one of the stories is that he has or had just like countless albums, finished albums, hidden in a
Oh
vault,
yeah, yeah. I remember
and
hearing
that he
that.
only listened to his own music.
Mm-hmm.
So like he, I mean, I don't only listen to my own music. Obviously, I'm not a musician, but I don't only play my own games either.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And
there's
you don't
something to
only
be said
enjoy
about
your own
like
drawings.
there are unhealthy extremes, and I think that, well, I mean, maybe it wasn't unhealthy. Maybe he had a ton of fun and was living the dream,
Mm-hmm.
calling people and getting camels delivered in the middle of the night, and then, recording a song and then listening to it all day for a week. But like maybe I'm sure that's a fun way to live. But what I want is to kind of bounce back away from isolation because I've become so isolated.
Yeah, no,
And
I
so I want to
definitely
be
feel you.
seen. I want to feel more comfortable like sharing my art. I want to show pictures of the trolls I've been drawing rather than feeling like I need to wait until the product is published as a game set.
Yeah,
Because
sort of
the thing
like,
is, like, once I hide all these things into the book or in the card pack, all these illustrations under the thing of like, oh, I want when someone opens it, they'll be surprised to see the art. But I don't know that like really is
and
what
that
people are
does
looking for.
happen. That definitely
Yeah,
does happen. I've opened card packs like on stream before and just been like, whoa, I've never seen, like, I've never and I've had that happen as someone who sees like all of your drawings. So
and I
there's like
share. I'll be
things,
like,
yeah, there's
oh,
things
Malev,
that
I
you
finished
even shared
sketching.
with me. So when I have that reaction, it's definitely a clue that, yeah, there's definitely some stuff that Sean's not sharing.
But I need to not hold my cards so close to my chest, or I'll turn into a guy who writes games and is in my garage and never sharing the art. And I think part of it's making booking deadlines and Kickstarters or just telling people when things are going to happen. I think I hope to be able to manage my time and productivity a little bit better and be less scattered. And I think meeting slash podcasting about what my plans are could be part of that, you know? Like,
Well, yeah, like we've been talking about Savage stuff,
yeah.
and I think we've had like 2 meetings about it, and they've been
Mhm.
really formative and sort of like integral to not only like the themes and ideas and some of the mechanics present, but also for me to think about like actually spending time at each day. And I'm using the 750 words like daily writing format to use that. And I'm just like, you know, I have to do my words each day. 750 is plenty, and I can think of like what sections of the rules haven't I written down yet? Oh, okay, I haven't done experience and death and injuries or something. So then I've just been like, write that, think about it.
Mhm.
And it's like just a very free writing kind of like experiment, but just having the idea that you have to write the words every day, and then this new idea I've attached on top where I'm like, but now I'm going to use that space to write the game. And like that's what that's for. That's that daily allocation and that time for that. And not worrying about a deadline specifically, but just that if I do that, that's done. And there was a tweet that I read from a writer. I would like to name the names that I have in my head, but I can't remember if they're actually correct. But they said they were replying to a thread, and the writer said it was the writer of Coraline, the story that Tim Burton ended up making the movie about. And he said that he wrote Coraline in 50 words a night. So
Is it Neil Gaiman?
That's who I was gonna say. I was gonna say Neil Gaiman, but I wasn't sure. But yeah, he said I wrote Coraline in 50 words a night. And that like really struck me. Where I was like, man, that's true. That's a very interesting way to look at designing a game, about chipping away at a project. It's like just thinking about these little small steps, and it's kind of obvious adage, the how do you eat an elephant type thing, small bites or whatever. But for me, having that tool of writing, and then that day, and then that objective on top of all of that layered together has really been getting me excited about like coming to the seat here, and then just being like, okay, like what am I gonna write today? And like today was the lore.
The book was written by Neil Gaiman.
Okay, nice.
Whom we all love. And then Henry Selick wrote the screenplay and directed it.
Oh, okay.
And it was Leica Studios, and our friend Dakota Fanning did the voice of Coraline.
Oh, nice. So me saying Tim Burton's name was just completely useless.
It's because when you click
stylistically
on IMDb and it says more like this, it's all Tim Burton stuff.
Yeah,
because it's whack. Because that people don't know how to categorize weird.
Mm-hmm. They just show a picture of Tim Burton's hair. There you go.
Even though Neil Gaiman is way more prolific and way more of a
sure.
Not to poo-poo what's his face, Mr. Burton, but like Neil Gaiman is prolific.
He'd be writing some stuff. So yeah, that little sage tweet. It was like one sentence. I was like, that's really inspiring. That you just kind of allocate that little time daily to kind of do something, and then you're gonna be at that point where you're like, oh, now I have to like release it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, cool. I think that actually ties back to the idea of this little show. Being able to just say like, 50 minutes a week, like what?
Yeah, what have we been doing?
To say what you been doing, and like what have you been thinking about? Because you and I both suffer from artist brain, where we just like we cannot not think deep. We can't just be okay. We can't just take things for as they are. It's all just a mess of just exploring ideas, trying to figure out like why, what's up, like making art, and I think it's gonna be good for us to be able to like get these ideas processed, and then also use that time to just tell people about the cool stuff we've been making. So,
Absolutely.
so as a close to episode 0, Malev, what you been making?
What I've been making. Oh, let's talk about what we've been making and what we've been playing. Because that's
Oh.
because I know we've been done a little bit of playing stuff, but
Yeah.
what I've been making mostly has been painting figures for the games that I've been inspired to play recently, and also after
Which
like
ones? Tell us which ones. Oh, I
this
guess maybe your people who watch your stream
Descent.
instead of just listening to it.
It's strangely enough
Descent. Oh,
Descent.
right, Descent.
Descent
Yeah.
Second Edition. I've very happily resurrected that game from the shelf, and we're playing it more than ever have before, which has been really cool. But to go back to making, I've also, after about 3 months of yeah, like artist brain, on severe pondering all the time, haven't really been able to write any new songs. I've finally been able to like write something, record a track to the Patreon to release, and it's been nice to be like, nice. I did completely forget how to do this stuff. It's just sometimes, challenge in the face of what all this endless other things that are happening on top of, just thinking about stuff. You were saying too too heavy or soft. But yeah, Descent is the game that I've been playing a lot. Also, um, I don't know when it's happening or if it's already happened. Oh, I'm pretty sure it's already on PlayStation 5. Chivalry 2. We've talked about this, right? Chivalry 2 is on PlayStation 5, but
I think so.
crossplay, I think, is coming out in an upcoming update. So that me and you
Oh,
can finally play together. Because that game has also been what I've been playing a lot before bed. Chivalry 2.
dang. Yeah, we'll
That
play
game
that together.
is,
I'll hit you with a halberd.
yeah, no, we'll hit other people with halberds
Oh,
on the
good.
same team, but sometimes we'll inadvertently hit each other with halberds accidentally all the time. Sure, that definitely will happen. But yeah, that game's been a lot of fun. But Descent has been exciting because every time I play a game that is, I guess for lack of a better term, like complicated board game, like a really big box board game, and I have all types of expansions for that game, and to finally get a campaign going that has all of the moving pieces of like the whole system that clicks together and stuff, and seeing how it all interacts and works with each other is been really cool to see in Descent. Even though as the Overlord, I've lost every quest
Mm.
because the game is a very tactical game that has a unique mixture of um, card effects, all with dice rolling. So you just have these mechanics layered on top of mechanics that are just
Mhm.
interacting in very unpredictable ways, while the scenario design is designed in such a way where you have to do predictable things in order to win. But
Yeah.
we're at that point where I see and as the designer, like design brain kicks in, and I'm just like thinking, man, coming up with a scenario for this game is a really interesting and open process with the way that they design components, like because they have a thing called objective tokens, which are just tokens with like different colors on them essentially, and those tokens become anything and everything that the scenario requires. Water to put out fires, people to save, or even figures that are going to be doing stuff. And there's just like this interesting open design space on top of the tiles that you use for the board. So I'm now starting to like see why they use this tile here, with how many spaces away from it is,
Mhm.
with like the average like moves that it would take to get there, thinking about like the clock of the turn and like the the desired efficiency that the game like wants you to kind of do in order to win, and it really becomes like this battle of like who can be more efficient with their turn and stuff like that, thinking outside the box, and that game's been making me just like just excited because the experience is really interesting. It has like solo play variants and stuff, which I have, but it's been really cool to actually like play against people and get that, quote unquote like actual experience. Like we're in the interlude now, and after the interlude, we'll transition to Act 2, and I'm like, man, I've never even played with the Act 2 monsters and cards before, because it's gonna like ramp up and like the damage is gonna output is gonna be crazy. Your health is going up, all abilities are going up, so it'll be exciting to see like how the game elevates in its scope with as it's progressed and stuff. And the book says something like to play the campaign that comes in the base game will take about 20 hours, and I definitely think we're um about maybe 11 or 12 in or something now.
That's a funny thing to
it's been
write on a board game because, like, I mean, I appreciate the effort, but man, we we played Bushido yesterday, and like we played our introductory game over the course of like 5 hours, and then
really
played a full size game over the course of like I don't know another 5 hours because we were a little faster. It's like it
uh
was yeah. We spent all day trying to get through 2 games.
did how
Um,
did you like was that do you think is that like a fall, or is that average? You feel like
it's
that's
it's
normal?
because neither of us knew how to play. Like we both
Hmm.
had read the rule book a couple times, um, but there's a lot of I didn't. What I often will do when I'm trying to learn a game is I'll like get the book rules set up some figures and like play through a couple activations at least, if not a whole game.
Yeah.
Because there's so much stuff that can come up that that isn't obvious, even for me as someone who designs games. Like one of the examples is my one of my badass samurai ran over and charged this ninja guy in the back. Okay, and facing is really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And so I come in and I obliterate that guy. Luckily, because like you can die anytime you fight. You know, and the mechanics for resolving it are very cool, but also took. I still am not positive. Like
Yeah.
I could describe to you the steps, but when you're executing, I still need to open the book for sure.
And like make
Uh,
sure you're going through it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
especially because there's like interrupt things and the
Oh,
like 20 steps of resolving a combat.
it's
Uh,
important to
so
know at which
it's
point.
new to me. So I'm trying to figure out like, oh, when do you do a feat, and is it a feat or is it a status or is it a trait? You know,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
so many keywords that like, oh, well, that's different because it's a trait, not a state. And you're like, all right. But yeah, it was very cool. And then I was facing the wrong way and I got shot in the back with an arrow. And so I was surprised because the arrow hit me from the back. But we couldn't figure out if after getting shot you can turn around. So my guy got shot in the back and then was surprised, which gives a bonus to the attacker. But then we couldn't figure out if there was anything I could do other than move other guys to try and protect him to help him try and figure out how to turn himself around. So like it felt less like samurai were running around with swords and spears, and more like big clunky mechs were trying to figure out how to turn and face the right direction. So it's
I
funny
feel
because
yeah.
and it's probably for me I'm a very like I'll try and understand rules in a simulation. Like, what are these rules simulating? And like, what is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
narrative of what happened? So, like, in certain exchanges, it's very explicitly awesome where the ninja did this defensive move, blocked the attack, and then stabbed my guy in the face. And then with that, he got poisoned and now he's bleeding from his face. And so my guy didn't actually die from the stab, he died from diarrhea, right? Like,
Oh no.
yeah, so there's like a lot of cool stuff that can happen. But as far as resolving it, like my guy got shot from behind, but in a combat, like you're both interacting. But when you get shot, I guess you aren't. It happens outside of it. So like timeline wise, when did I get shot? And
Yeah, I was thinking the
are my
same.
guys are my guys like battleships that can't really turn or turn their heads to look around, or are they like in this like time bullet time, kung
Hmm.
fu fight, right?
Yeah, because facing
Because
is interesting when you're dealing with like people model.
yeah, it's convoluted for us because neither of us like I play Infinity where facing is really important, but I feel like when you're shooting space age lasers at each other, the time is slowed way down to like the instant you peek out
Yeah, yeah.
and
Like
fire your gun.
we're thinking
Phew!
scanners
And
and
there's big explosions and all right, I get it. But like with Sam, like for me to be standing there and getting hit in the back by an arrow and then not figuring out how to turn my head and then getting shot with a spell and then is it all happening at the same time? Even though my other guys, So, anyways,
it
I
makes
think
me
part of it is
think.
just my imagination because the game. I'm not criticizing the game mechanics. It's about my expectations
Yeah,
of
yeah,
a round. Because in some games you move and attack, and that's because that's what you did during that like 1 minute of fighting.
mm,
And in other games like this, whenever you two guys fight, they both spend an activation counter and they both are fighting, you know.
hmm.
But arrows happen in another time frame. You don't like
Yeah, yeah,
deflect
yeah.
arrows or react to them. Anyways, but
They're
that
like
said, like
instant.
shooting was really underpowered in the way we were understanding the rules. So it wasn't like game breaking to get shot in the shoulder or shot in the back.
I feel you.
In by any means, it was barely an
Well,
inconvenience.
it's an
It just was
interesting.
funny that I could get shot and not turn my head.
I think it's interesting though because it kind of does point out like expectation. Like for example, in the
Mhm.
Relic Blade in the Metal King Studio Discord, one of the questions that have been coming up is, "Are you an ally to yourself?"
Mm,
And people, it's always like, yeah, that's a thing that kind of comes up in other games. But no, like, and that expectation of that's sort of built in that you
yeah,
kind of carry from different rule sets or
yeah.
just your understandings. And it makes me think about the way that rules are written, and I feel like a lot of rules in modern games today are, well, of course with exceptions, but a lot of them are very like trying to be as concise as possible, as to not
Mhm,
be confusing, at the least. But
mhm,
by doing so, they'll leave out intention. They'll try
yeah,
to like in bake intention into the most perfect, clear language. Whereas if I think about old 40K, when it was talking about the movement value of your models being 6 inches in the inventory tray, and it may say this in modern edition, I'm not really sure, but it just reminds me of it. It was saying that the reason why your models move 6 inches is because it represents them moving at a pace which they're constantly scanning and checking their surroundings for danger
mhm,
and like stopping and aiming their guns and clearing things and then moving forward slightly, not
yeah,
not like this robotic movement of like I walk forward now. The abstraction of their distance is also caution that the models are not aware of what you're aware of, so they're gonna move in a way.
I think it's a very fun conversation to have, and maybe we need to bookmark it. But like rules lineage, and it maybe is part of it, where I played tons of More Time, and I played Warhammer and War Machine. And War Machine is way more of a like technical, there's facing, there's directly away versus within versus completely within versus partially, like, all these like
and
really,
then
really
definitions of those definitions.
And so with Sludge, I was writing it with the intention of saying, you, dear player, know how to play games. You're buying Blaster. You're a veteran gamer. Like, so I'm going to write these rules under the expectation that you will have traditions for things like guessing ranges or line of sight or terrain placing, that I'm going to lay that burden on you.
Yeah.
And on your game group. But then a guy posted a question. He was like, it is literally impossible to move directly away from another unit. Was basically what he was saying.
I remember.
And I was maybe too tired or something, but I could not figure out what he meant. I was like, how can it be impossible to move figurines on a table? But I realized I understand what he means now because I've had a bunch of time to think about it. But I should not use the word directly. And it makes it so that plain language is not usable when you're writing rules, because there are so many other games that use keyword. It basically is a stack of keywords that you have to have an encyclopedia of the game to understand. Like, that was something we ran into with Bushido, is like they would say things like, when this guy, when he dies, explodes and everyone gets fire two.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, what is fire? And then fire, you look up and it says fire is when you hit a guy, they catch on fire.
And they'll suffer 2 damage or something.
And then we like, no, it didn't say anything like that, or where to look for. But then at length, I found a status called on fire, which doesn't start with an F, and it's alphabetical. So and again, I'm not criticizing. Bushido is made by awesome dudes that I met at Adepticon. I'm not criticizing it, but for me, rules lineage is the conversation. Like, coming from a background of more of a like D&D thing, I'm more role play in how I play games.
Yeah, same.
And so I found on fire, I found what happened, and the resolution of it is pretty much very similar to all the other status effects. So if you knew how to resolve status effects, you'd know how to do it really quick, right? But for me, it was like I had to like look up.
You had to figure out all of that based on.
Or like another thing was that movement. And I'm not picking on Bushido again.
But it's just what we've been playing.
It's a game I just read.
Yeah, we've just been playing.
I just read it. That's why it's on my mind. Was like, movement is different than walking, even though walking is movement.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't move. Like, moving isn't an action. Walking is an action. But when you walk, you move. So you have to read the rules for move. Or something like,
I gotcha. Like, I mean, Relic Blade kind of has that with climb is a jump, is a move action, but you can't. But it's not like its own action. So it's an action within an action.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's funny trying to figure out exactly how to communicate when you're writing rules, and then also understanding that the way different players from different backgrounds will read the rules.
Yeah.
Because because I wrote Relic Blade, and it's pretty explicitly like this is D&D lineage, and with tabletop gaming element. It's a tactical battle game, but it's pretty D&D. Um, and so yeah. Anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say is when I wrote Sludge, I was writing a battle, like a war game, larger like army scale game, and then that brings in a larger player base of people from different backgrounds of wargaming.
Yeah.
Which it's good to talk about because
you get a lot of different
you've
feedback.
got historical wargamers that will view it as a goofy skirmish, small scale skirmish game, and then you've got skirmish gamers, fantasy skirmish gamers who will come in and say this is the biggest army I've ever painted.
Yeah.
And then other people like historical gamers who will all be intimately familiar with putting a stand of figures with a couple of troops on it, and that's like one base of guys. And then other players who have never seen something like that.
Yeah, they're like, how do I even fit the guys on there? And I mean, I've had that too.
I have to use a 50 mil base because I can't imagine fitting them in a tight formation. But it's like, bro, guys walk shoulder to shoulder when they fight. Like, it might be awkward to paint them, but people stand close to each other. They don't stand 5 feet apart. Oh, well, like, and when I look at big rank and flank, like, games, sometimes you'll see guys standing in they're supposed to be in a fighting formation, but they've got like in scale 10 feet between each guy. If you count, like 1 inch is supposed to be 6 feet, and their bodies are almost 2 inches apart while on a movement tray, and it's like it's fine. It's just like, to me aesthetically, I have like a pedantic brain that's like, no one would fight like that. I'm not gonna walk into a medieval battlefield
with your homie over there.
8 feet away from
we've trained together, brother. Good luck over there in your battle.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What did you say?
Clang, clang, ting.
I said, good luck out there.
I would watch your back if I were but nearer to it, but I cannot. I'm dead. For sure.
Anyways, there's a lot to talk about, like gaming lineages. How pedantic are you? Like,
and I've written that down. That could be something that we talk about next week. Yeah, I think an interesting thing to talk about would definitely be like time abstraction, because like models having facing versus not having facing, and like, when actions are happening, like that's one thing that I think is interesting about Relic Blade, is that the actions that occur are really easy to track, and there's this like sequential action, like really imagine occur, whereas some games that process is a bit more abstracted to a different sort of style.
Yep, for sure. Oh, so let me say what I've been making. I've got a bunch of figures I've been sculpting. I've got lots of drawings I've been drawing. Got lots of Relic Blade content I'm dying to make, and I've got Sludge content I'm dying to make, and I just don't know where to start, so I don't even know what to begin telling you guys about. But I've already mentioned that I drew some trolls, so I will drop some pictures of trolls in the like show notes wherever we post this, and I'll post them to my Instagram so you guys can see the trolls I've been drawing, and those are they'll be monsters in the Relic Blade solo, which has bloated into a beautiful roguelike dungeon crawl.
Crazy creation.
Because I can't help myself.
Yeah, which I think is good, and another thing that we'll definitely talk about in the future. It's just like how ideas that we talk about like are the Metal King Studio like creative birth cycle of how things get, smashed around and how they always form into these beautiful and cool creations that feel just right. And also, if anybody else has topics that you'd like us to talk about or address, then absolutely leave those in the comments below, and we'll be sure to maybe include it. And of course, there's going to be room for stuff that that we're thinking about in the future. Like maybe at the end, we can answer a question that people have. A take for both myself and Sean to maybe answer and give our opinion on whatever it may be. To more advanced video type of features where we'll be able to reference maybe put into the videos new sculpts, projects, sneak peek, like this format as we kind of figure out what shape we want it to take in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that this has been really cool. I'm excited to do more.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we've been doing it for a while now. I think just turning on the camera and recording it would be, I think, really interesting because if I find a lot of stuff about really interesting and inspiring, and so hopefully,
and also theoretically, when I was painting Bushido models, I wanted to be able to just sort of put on audio of like audio content, podcast type content that would help me enter the mind state and know what to expect and stuff. And so it'll be really fun to just be.
Yeah, because we can have all types of segments, talk about what we painted, what we gaming, dreams, hobby loot hauls. We picked up any new stuff. There's lots to potentially explore in this format for us.
So in closing, this episode of Metal King Shinobi Squadron, Battle Friends, Best Battle Buds of Fantasy War Games. It's brought to you by Metal King Studio and Malev Minis, and you can find my art on relicblade.com and Sean Sutter art on Instagram and whatever Facebook groups and stuff. Malev, where can people find you?
You can find me at Malev_minis on Instagram, Malev the Shinobi on Facebook, Malev the Shinobi on Spotify, and all of your preferred music streaming platforms, and twitch.tv/MalevFlowShinobi for all of the live streaming goodness, miniature painting, tabletop games, video games, hanging and chatting, big chilling. But yes, y'all. All right, everybody. We will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.
Episode 1 of whatever our show will be.
Yeah, or episode like 0.1. We'll see. Who knows? Peace out.